Okay, so, you sent over some sources about municipal website costs in 2025,
Yeah,
and it was really interesting to see just how much people expect from their local governments online.
right.
So in this deep dive, we're going to really break down those costs, get into the nitty-gritty of why designing these websites is so expensive these days, and kind of give everyone listening a clearer picture of how the local governments are approaching this whole thing.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest takeaways from the stuff you sent over is how much more complex this has all become.
Yeah, for sure.
The question itself is simple enough, like how much does it cost to design one of these websites in 2025?
Right.
But to really answer that, we have to understand, all the stuff that goes into it, why it costs, what it costs, and what that actually means for a community.
Definitely. And I think one of the first things that really jumped out at me from these sources was this idea that, a municipal website, it's not just an expense anymore. It's a serious investment.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's a core piece of digital infrastructure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, think about it. If you go back even just a few years, the way we interacted with local government was so different.
Right.
If you needed information, you'd call someone or you'd actually have to go down to town hall.
Exactly.
But now people expect to do everything online, find information, pay bills, report issues, you name it. And they want it to be just as easy as it is with everything else they do online.
Exactly.
And so that really changes the game. A city website, it can't just be some static page with a few phone numbers on it.
Like a digital brochure, basically.
Right, exactly. It needs to be this dynamic platform that can actually deliver services.
And all the sources really emphasize that the pressure to meet these expectations is huge.
Yeah.
Like with technology changing so fast and people expecting more and more,
Yeah.
it's not just about having a website, period.
Yeah.
It has to be functional, user-friendly, has to have everything, and it absolutely has to be accessible to everybody.
You got it. And that's where the cost really starts to come in because it's not just, throwing something together anymore. You have to build something that actually works for the people who need it.
Right. So let's get into what actually drives these costs then.
Sure.
One of the first things the sources talk about is user-centric design.
Right.
Which I guess makes sense. You want everyone, regardless of how tech-savvy they are or what device they're using, to be able to actually find what they need and use the website easily.
Yeah, exactly. And, they mention things like intuitive navigation, clear labeling, responsive design.
Right, all that good stuff.
And it's interesting because a lot of work goes into making something that seems simple on the surface.
Oh, I bet.
Like intuitive navigation that doesn't happen by accident. You have to really think about how people are going to use the site and organize the information in a way that makes sense to them.
That makes sense.
And then, clear labeling, everything needs to be easy to scan and understand, and responsive design. Making sure the site works on phones and tablets, that's not a nice to have anymore. That's absolutely essential.
Yeah, especially these days.
And, at the end of the day, if a website is designed poorly, it ends up costing the city more anyway.
How so?
Well, if people can't find what they need, they're going to be calling and emailing all the time. And that takes up staff time.
Ah, that's true.
So investing in good user experience up front actually saves money in the long run.
I see. So it's like a pay now or pay later kind of situation.
Exactly.
Okay, so then there's the content management system, the CMS.
Right.
I'm not super technical myself, but I know this is important. So can you explain why this is such a big part of the cost?
Sure. The CMS is basically the software that runs the website behind the scenes.
Okay.
And it's what lets the city staff actually update the website, adding new information, posting documents, all that, without having to call in a developer every time.
Yeah. Oh, so like when they need to update the meeting minutes or announce an event or something.
Exactly. And, having a good CMS that's easy to use and has all the features they need, that's crucial for keeping the website up to date and relevant over time.
That makes sense.
Because if the CMS is clunky or outdated or it's missing key features, then the website basically becomes unusable. And, nobody wants to go to a government website that hasn't been updated since 2018.
Right. Full of dead links and outdated information.
Exactly.
So moving on, another big area that's obviously super important and probably takes a big chunk of the budget is security.
Absolutely. This is non-negotiable.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Municipal websites, they handle sensitive information like people's personal data and financial transactions. So security is absolutely paramount.
And I bet the stakes are even higher now with everything moving online.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So what are some of the things that cities are investing in to keep these websites secure?
Well, first of all, you have encryption to protect data as it's being transmitted. And then you have secure online payment systems to protect financial information.
Right.
And then, of course, you have to have really strong defenses against cyber threats.
Which I'm guessing are constantly evolving.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's a constant arms race.
So you're basically trying to stay one step ahead of the bad guys.
Exactly.
The sources also mentioned regular security audits and compliance with data protection standards.
Yeah, those are both really important.
Because you have to make sure that your security measures are actually working.
Exactly. And audits help you identify any weaknesses before someone else does.
Right.
And compliance with those standards makes sure that you're following best practices and legal requirements.
So it's really an ongoing process.
Definitely security is not something you can just set and forget.
So it's an investment that keeps on giving.
You got it.
Okay, now the sources also talk about interactivity and services on these websites.
Right.
Things like being able to report a pothole online or pay your taxes. Obviously, that's really convenient for residents, but I imagine that adds a lot of complexity on the back end.
It does, yeah, because those functionalities, they're not just about sticking a form on the website.
Right.
You have to integrate them with the city's other systems.
Oh, so like if I report a pothole online, that information has to actually go to the right department and be tracked.
Exactly. And if I pay my taxes online, it has to connect to the city's financial systems.
Oh, that sounds complicated.
Yeah, it can be, and it often involves custom development work to make sure everything works smoothly.
But the convenience for residents is huge, though.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I'd much rather report a pothole online than have to call someone or go down to City Hall.
Me too.
All right, so the last key component that the sources highlight is accessibility and compliance, specifically with the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA.
Right.
It seems like this should just be a given with any website these days. But I guess there are specific things that need to be done to make sure a website is truly accessible.
Yeah, there are. And it's becoming more and more of a legal requirement as well.
I can imagine.
But, beyond the legal stuff, it's really about making sure that everyone can use the website regardless of their abilities.
Absolutely.
So, for example, you have to provide alternative text for images so that screen readers can describe them to people who can't see them.
Oh.
You have to make sure that the website can be navigated using just a keyboard for people who can't use a mouse.
Makes sense.
And you need to provide transcripts for audio and video content.
Right. So it's really about removing those barriers and making sure that everyone has equal access to the information and services.
Exactly. And that's really a reflection of the city's commitment to inclusivity.
Right. It's about serving all of its residents equally.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about all the basic elements that contribute to the cost of designing a municipal website, but the sources also dive into some of the factors that can really impact the final price tag.
Right.
The things that can make one project much more expensive than another. And the first one is scope and scale. It makes sense that a bigger city with more services and more residents is going to need a more complex website.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're talking about more information, more departments, more integrations. So it's a bigger job all around.
Definitely designing a website for a small town with a few thousand people is very different from designing a website for a major city with millions of residents.
Right. And then there's the level of customization.
Right.
It seems like there's a trade-off between using pre-made templates, which are probably more affordable, and getting a completely custom-built solution.
Yeah, that's the classic dilemma, right?
Right.
Templates can be a good option for smaller municipalities with limited budgets.
Yeah, I can see that.
But most cities want something unique, something that reflects their brand and meets their specific needs.
Right.
And that's where custom design comes in. But of course, custom design costs more because you need more specialized expertise and it's a bigger scope of work.
Makes sense.
So it's always a balancing act.
And then there's content strategy. It's easy to think about a website as being all about the visuals and the tech stuff, but the actual words, the images, the videos, that's all super important too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it sounds like that also plays a big role in the overall cost.
It does because, a good website needs good content.
Right. It's not just about copying and pasting from old brochures and stuff.
Exactly. You need to think about how to present the information in a way that's clear and engaging and easy to find online.
And I bet a lot of times you're starting from scratch.
Yeah, often you have to create brand new content and you have to make sure it's consistent with the city's voice and style.
So you need skilled writers and editors, and it takes time to do it right.
Absolutely.
And then we have third-party integrations.
Right.
Which seem to be more and more common these days. Things like integrating with emergency alert systems or public transportation schedules or utility billing platforms. And And that makes sense because those are all really valuable services to have on a municipal website.
Yeah, but they can also be really complex because you're basically connecting the website to these external systems.
Right. So it's not just about building the website itself. You have to make it talk to all these other systems.
Exactly, and that often involves custom development work to make sure the data is flowing smoothly and securely.
So that adds to the costs.
Definitely.
And finally, the sources emphasize that even once the website is launched, you're not done spending money.
Right.
You need to factor in ongoing maintenance and support.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A website is not a one-time thing.
Right. Like it's not a print brochure that you just put out there and forget about.
Exactly. It needs regular updates to the software and security features to keep it running smoothly and to protect it from new threats.
Makes sense.
And then there's the ongoing security monitoring and technical support if something breaks. And of course, you might need to update the content or add new features over time.
So it's really an ongoing investment.
It is. It's just like maintaining any other piece of critical infrastructure.
So we've talked about all the things that go into the cost of building a municipal website in 2025.
Yeah.
And it's clear that it could be a pretty significant investment.
For sure.
But the sources also make a strong case for looking beyond just the cost and focusing on the value that these websites can bring to a community.
Right.
So how does that initial investment actually pay off in the long run?
Well, for one thing, it makes things more efficient for everyone.
How so?
Well, if people can access information and services online 24/7, they don't have to call or go down to City Hall for every little thing.
Right, so it frees up staff time and it's more convenient for residents.
Exactly.
And it also improves accessibility for people with disabilities.
Absolutely.
And I imagine it also helps to create a more positive image for the city.
Yeah, definitely. If people have a good experience online, they're more likely to have a positive view of their local government.
It's like a modern storefront.
Exactly.
And the sources really stress the importance of using this whole website design process as an opportunity to step back and really think about how to best serve the community. You know, like what are the most common questions people have?
Yeah.
What services could be improved? How can we make it easier for people to get involved?
Right. It's a chance to reassess and make sure that the website is actually meeting the needs of the people.
So it's not just about building a website. It's about building a better connection with the community.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, it all comes back to those core principles we talked about. User experience, accessibility, and security.
Yeah.
Those are the foundations of a really strong digital presence for any city.
Absolutely. A website that's easy to use, accessible to everyone, and secure. That's not just a website, that's a valuable tool for the whole community.
So it's an investment worth making.
Definitely.
So to wrap up, you know, it's clear that designing a municipal website in 2025 is a complex and expensive undertaking.
For sure.
But the big takeaway is that it's not just the cost. It's about creating this essential digital gateway for the community. It's about giving people access to information and services, making it easier to get involved, and building a stronger connection between the city and its residents.
That's a great way to put it.
And, you know, it really makes you think about what's possible when you have a truly effective and user-centric digital presence. It's not just about the money. It's about the potential to transform how local government works and how people engage with their communities.
I agree.
Well, thanks for diving into this with me. It's been a really interesting conversation.
My pleasure.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
See ya.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.